Shalom, brothers and sisters. Shalom, brothers and sisters. Giving honor and praise unto the Most High, the Creator and the Maker of heaven and earth. My name is Yeshaya Yisrael of the tribe of Dan of the nation of Israel. Brothers and sisters, this particular teaching called Simeon and Dan, or Shimon Udadan, brothers and sisters, is basically to explain what we stand upon historically, archaeology, and in other aspects, brothers and sisters. All right. So, without further ado, brothers and sisters, let us start this particular presentation. Shalom. Exodus chapter 17, verse 8 through verse 10. Matter with Amalek. Then came Amalek and fought with Israel in Rephidim. And Moses said unto Joshua, choose us out men and go out. Fight with Amalek. Tomorrow I will stand on the top of the hill with the rod of Elohim in my hand. So Joshua did as Moses had said to him and fought with Amalek. And Moses, Aaron, and Hur went up to the top of the hill. Okay, brothers and sisters. So this right here, brothers and sisters, is a situation that took place basically less than 3 or 4 months after the children of Israel done left up out of the land of Egypt. All right. And what's happening is the Amalekites decided to go and attack the children of Israel. All right. And so Moses told Joshua to go and sit there and gather men in order to sit there and fight, brothers and sisters, against the children of the Amalekites. Now, the word Amalek, brothers and sisters, all right, basically means warlike. Okay. And brothers and sisters, they were in part the descendants of the children of Esau. So you have it to where there were Amalekites that were from Esau, and then you had Amalekites that were not from Esau. All right, so we can gain some understanding of what we're talking about. Okay, let's go on, brothers and sisters, to the next slide. Deuteronomy chapter 25, verse 17 through verse 19. Remember what Amalek did unto thee by the way as he came forth out of Egypt, how he met thee by the way and smote the hindmost of thee, all that were enfeebled in thy rear, when thou wast faint and weary, and he feared not Elohim. So when the Most High is speaking now in Deuteronomy chapter 25 through the prophet Moses, it says, remember what Amalek did unto thee by the way when you came up out of the land of Egypt. Deuteronomy, brothers and sisters, all right, is several decades after the book of Exodus. So the Most High is not teaching the people basically, oh, you know, that's in the past. You ain't got to sit there and worry about that. All that stuff is sit there in the past. No, the Most High says, remember what Amalek did unto thee. And then it gives them an incentive to remember what happened. It says how he met thee by the way and smote the hindmost of thee, all that were enfeebled in thy rear, when I was faint and weary, and he feared not Elohim. So when he smote the hindmost of thee, in other words, the people that was the quote unquote lollygags, even elders, the people who were in the back that couldn't quote unquote keep up with everyone else, when you was faint and weary, remember, they didn't have water for some days or so after they came up out of the land of Egypt. You understand? So there's a lot of things that these people, the children of Israel in the wilderness, were dealing with. Hygiene is one. Thirst is another. Hunger is another. And the Amalekites, perhaps knowing the situation that the Israelites was under, decided to attack the Israelites. We call that in maybe layman terms as a punk move. You know, you come in through the back area way in order to sit there and attack. Therefore it shall be, when the Lord thy God has given thee rest from all thine enemies round about, in the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee, for an inheritance to possess it, that thou shalt blot out the remembrance from Amalek, of Amalek from under heaven. Thou shalt not forget. So now in the beginning of verse 17, it says, remember what Amalek did. At the end of verse 19, it says, thou shalt not forget. So, brothers and sisters, as the book of Ecclesiastes states, brothers and sisters, it tells you that the Most High requires the past. So we're not supposed to, if we're any understanding of the Torah, to be on the spirit of, well, you know, that's all in the past. That's all in the past. We got to move on now. No, the God of the Old Testament, as it is erroneously called, the God of the Hebrew Scriptures, more so correctly called, is saying, don't forget the drama, don't forget the disrespect, don't forget, brothers and sisters, when people disrespected you. You understand? So this is something to be pointed out for edification purposes. All right, next slide. Judges chapter 11, verse 26. When Israel dwelt in Heshbon and its towns, and in Aroer and its towns, and all the cities that were alongside the Arnon, 300 years, wherefore did ye not recover them within that time? Now, what we're reading, brothers and sisters, in the book of Judges, all right, is a situation between the guy, Yiftach, and the Israelites. All right, Yiftach, we're going to see, was from the tribe of Manasseh. Now, remember, brothers and sisters, Manasseh, because Manasseh becomes important as this teaching goes on. All right, so now Yiftach is telling the people, all right, pardon me, this is Yiftach speaking on behalf of Israel to the people of Moab. All right, when they was going back and forth with a particular situation. All right, so I just want to emphasize that for edification purposes. So now 300 years between the book of Numbers, because that's when you read about them in the land of Heshbon, and the book of Numbers. 300 years from the book of Numbers to the book of Judges. All right, and we already understand that from the book of Exodus, when Israel was attacked by the Amalekites, all the way to the book of Deuteronomy is over 30 years. So we're now in a process of over literally 330 years from the book of Exodus to the book of Judges. This timeline is for a reason. Next slide. 1 Samuel chapter 15, verse 1 through 3, and in verse 7. And Samuel said unto Saul, Yah has Yah sent me to anoint thee to be king over his people, over Israel. Now therefore, hearken now unto the voice of the words of Yah. Thus saith Yah Zebaot, the Lord of hosts. I remember that which Amalek did to Israel, how he set himself against him in the way when he came forth out of Egypt. Now the he that came up out of the land of Egypt is talking about Israel. All right? So let's go on, brothers and sisters. Now go and smite Amalek and utterly destroy all that they have, and spare them not, but slay both man and woman, infant and suckling, ox and sheep, camel and ass. And Saul smote the Amalekites from Havilah as thou goest toward Shur, that is in the front of Egypt. All right, so now the Amalekites was already noted as being in the wilderness of Sinai. And so when he speaks about from Havilah, which is by southern Beersheba, all right, as thou goest to Shur, that is in the front of Egypt. You read about the wilderness of Shur when you go into, brothers and sisters, the book of Exodus. All right, so these are things, brothers and sisters, that we want to talk about. So the Amalekites were already noted to being in what we call inside the Sinai Peninsula. Let's go on to the next slide, please. 1 Samuel chapter 15, verse 16 through verse 19. And Samuel said unto Saul, Stay, and I will tell thee what the Most High has said to me this night. And he said, Say on. Now, who does that sound like saying that? Say on. All right, let's go on. And Samuel said, Though thou be little in thine own sight, art thou not head of the tribes of Israel? And Yah anointed thee king over Israel. And Yah set thee on a journey and said, Go and utterly destroy the sinners, the Amalekites, and fight against them until they be consumed. Wherefore didst thou not hearken to the voice of Yah, but didst fly upon the spoil, and didst that which was evil in the sight of the Most High. So, brothers and sisters, what are we seeing right here? That Samuel, by the word of the Most High, gave Saul a command and an order to go and attack the Amalekites. The Most High, through Samuel, is telling Saul, I remember what Amalek did to my people, Israel. Just like in Deuteronomy, the Israelites are told to not forget. You understand? So now when it says here, wherefore then didst thou not hearken to the voice of the Lord, but didst fly upon the spoil and didst that which was evil in the sight of the Most High? What was evil, brothers and sisters, then in the sight of the Most High was not avenging the blood of your ancestors for having the spirit of saying, well, that's in the past, and I'm going to go and do a halfway mission because at the end of the day, I still see good things among the Amalekites. Brothers and sisters, you're not supposed to see good things coming from your enemy. You're not supposed to see good things coming from people who attacked your ancestors. You're not supposed to have a kind heart, more so trying to be quote unquote kinder or more quote unquote nicer than the Most High, the creator of heaven and earth. You understand? Because see, you got to remember, the Amalekites who attacked the Israelites told their sons and their daughters what they did to the house of Israel. We attacked the house of Israel when they came forth out of the land of Egypt. See, they tell their children what they have done to other people. You follow what I'm saying? So therefore, we cannot have the mentality that says, well, it's in the past. You don't have to worry about that. And as we're already showing, we're speaking over a 300-year span between the situation where Amalek and Israel in Exodus, we're talking over 300 years from that time until the time, brothers and sisters, that we see here in the book of Samuel. So, brothers and sisters, if slavery in the United States was given a legal sanction, brothers and sisters, in 1641, brothers and sisters, and this is now the year 2019. Let's do that math, if we will. All right? 2019, take away 1641, gives you 378. Since it was given legal sanction, not since it started. So it's been over 370 years from this date today since slavery in the United States was given legal sanction. So should we have the spirit of Saul that says, well, you know what? I still see good things that come from those who attacked my ancestors. Because see, according to the book of 1 Samuel 15, to find that, to fly upon the spoil and to sit there and not hearken to the word of the Most High, to fly upon the spoil, there wasn't supposed to be no spoil. You're supposed to annihilate everything, just like they did in Haiti, what they call the Haitian Revolution and guerrilla warfare, just like they did with the Battle of Trelawney in Jamaica when they was raising up against the enslavers. Destroy everything, the cat, the family pet, and everything else. All right? So this is something we want to point out for edification purposes. Somebody asks, was the Masoretic text under the Hebrews or Ashkenazi? To be candid upon that, neither. Because when the Masoretic text, I just want to address that question here. When the Masoretic text was understood and formulated in the 9th and 10th century AD, there was no aspect of the Ashkenazi Jews that was going around at that time. You understand? The Masorite people, brothers and sisters, was not to be found where the Ashkenazi people was at. This is why you will find Ashkenaz Jews doing things different even than what the Masoretic text itself holds. All right? So hopefully that did answer that question. Okay, so let's go on, brothers and sisters, to the next particular slide. 1 Samuel 15, verse 24 to verse 28 and verse 32. And 1 Samuel 16, 1 and verse 13. And Saul said unto Samuel, I have sinned, for I have transgressed the commandment of the Most High, and thy words, because I feared the people and hearkened to their voice. So, brothers and sisters, when you are a leader of the people, you cannot sit there and be in the aspect of, quote, fearing the words of the people and fearing, quote, losing the people. You can't sit there and have that mentality. You understand? At the same token, you're not supposed to be as a leader inside of a despot kind of a situation. So you should never, certainly in the house of Israel, you understand? Find yourself as in a leadership position and comparing that to the job of the white man. You understand? If you got to compare yourself as a leader in the house of Israel to the situations that we as men and women go through on the jobs with the Europeans, that's a problem. That is a big problem. You understand? So these are things, brothers and sisters, we want to point out for edification purposes. All right? I was asked, thanks, who were the Mazors? As in the Masoretic people, they were, to believe it or not, an actual conglomerate of different nations. This is why when you read in the Hebrew text, I didn't want to get sidetracked from this particular subject matter, but I did want to address the question that somebody did ask in here. Thanks, who were the Mazors? They were actually, as stated, a difference of conglomeration of different peoples. What the people did with the quote Masoretic text was taking the actual Hebrew text that was already formatted long before them, and then sat there and compared it to make the English later aspect of it. One thing we want to point out is that one of the common misunderstandings concerning the Masoretic text is that they were the ones who created vowels. They did not create vowels. The Most High created vowels, because a vowel is simply nothing more but a sound that is written, just as much as a consonant, pardon me, is nothing more but a letter that is written. So a vowel is written as well as a letter is written. So these things, brothers and sisters, we want to point out for edification purposes. Hopefully that did answer the question. Somebody else stated concerning this presentation, burn houses, cut off heads. That's what they said during the Haitian Revolution. So that is exactly what happened. Cut off heads. And to get a book concerning the Haitian Revolution, you can go to a book called The Black Jacobins. All right. So let's go on, brothers and sisters, for edification purposes. All right. Now, therefore, I pray thee, pardon my sin and return with me that I may worship the Most High. And Samuel said, and Samuel said unto Saul, I will not return with thee, for thou hast rejected the word of the Most High, and the Most High has rejected thee from being king over Israel. What do we see right here? Saul, no offense intended, sadly for Saul, was fired. To put it in layman terms, Saul was let go of his duties. Brothers and sisters, the Most High removed Saul. Why? Because he could not stand in front of the people while the people are leading you. You're supposed to, as a leader, lead the people. You understand? So this is something we want to point out for edification purposes. Now, somebody typed in, getting back to the other subject matter of what's typed in, the Mazors added vowel points. They may have, quote, written in a vowel point, but we want to emphasize that a vowel is nothing more that is written. That is one of the biggest misconceptions concerning, for instance, the Hebrew vowels. You understand? So when you go, for instance, in the book of Judges, long before the Masoretes or anything of that sort, you read about the unfortunate situation between the Shibboleth and Siboleth. As we've been pointing out, like on the other channel, not taking anything away from this presentation right here, but to speak about what we spoke on in the other channel, there is a video, and I could probably tag it into this when this is uploaded, called The Hebrew We Speak Is Not Yiddish. And then that video, which is on Mora Yeshaya Hebrew Lessons channel I have, brothers and sisters, I get into that particular subject much more in detail. All right? So we want to, brothers and sisters, continue on for edification purposes and what we're talking about. All right? Let's go on. Now, Saul, we see, brothers and sisters, was let go of his duties because he could not sit there and be a leader of the people while finding himself acquiescing to the people. You understand? Next slide. And Samuel said unto him, the Lord has rent the kingdom of Israel from thee this day, and have given it to a neighbor of thine that is better than thou. Then said Samuel, bring ye hither to me Agag, the king of the Amalekites. And Agag came unto him in chains. And Agag said, surely the bitterness of death is at hand. And Yah said unto Samuel, then this is getting into another part. How long wilt thou mourn over Saul, seeing I have rejected him from being king over Israel? Fill thy horn with oil and gold. I will send thee to Yishai, Jesse the Bethlehemite, for I have provided me a king among his sons. Then Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the midst of his brethren. And the spirit of the Most High came mightily upon David from that day forward. So Samuel rose up and went to Ramah. Now, what are we emphasizing at this particular point? While Saul was still on the said throne, the Most High already had removed him from that throne. So he was there just standing there, like you might say, a shadow of his former self. He's just there physically, but the Most High has removed himself from the presence of Saul. So though the people see him, the Most High sees David. So this is something we want to point out for edification purposes. Because Saul did not sit there and avenge the blood of his ancestors, the Most High removed him from being king over the house of Israel. So a leader of Israel has to be nationalistic. A leader of Israel cannot sit there and incorporate the concepts of loving everybody else. Because let me point this out, brothers and sisters, no disrespect intended about Solomon. 1 Kings chapter 11 says that Solomon loved many foreign women, right? By the time you get to, brothers and sisters, the book of 1 Kings chapter 12, the people are telling Rehoboam, your father oppressed us. Do we see what's happening? 1 Kings chapter 11 is where it says Solomon loved many foreign women. 1 Kings chapter 12, the Israelites are saying Solomon was an oppressor. What are we getting to, brothers and sisters? You cannot love the foreigners of your people and then still love your people. You cannot incorporate, like unfortunately the case with Solomon, the women of Esau, the women of Moab, the women of Egypt, the women of the Ammonites, and then still sit there talking about I'm a leader of the house of Israel. Can't do that. And then you see later on, Solomon lost the kingdom while he was actually still on the throne. Because when Jeroboam got to be known as a king to a certain extent, at least in the eyes of some people, Solomon wanted to kill Jeroboam. So when you now go, brothers and sisters, into the aspect and into the understanding of what happened with the nationalism that the Torah is espousing, Aaron, brothers and sisters, was the high priest. His son's mother, his wife, who became his son's mother, because there was an order, wife, then mother, okay? They were told that they were not supposed to marry foreign women. You understand? So this is something we want to sit there and show for edification purposes. You can't bring the foreigners into the house of Israel and then act like everything is still supposed to be the same. So yes, we can say, well, you know, the child is what the father is. But we have to ask, where is the father's mind when he doesn't want to sit there and be like Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and getting a wife of their own people? Why would you want to endorse getting a woman from someone else? Somebody, when I presented this subject before, said to me that David had wives that were not Israel, such as Absalom's mother. But don't you get the point? Absalom was wicked. The product of that did not turn out good. So we have to remember, just like Esau's product did not turn out good. That's why when we go, brothers and sisters, in the book of Tobit, as we did last Sabbath in teaching on this channel, it says, be not arrogant against the children of your own people and taking of a wife of your own people. Because in order to sit there and want somebody else that is not of your own, that is a form of arrogance. You see the situations that it never turned out good. You understand? To bring it a little bit outside of the Bible, when the Spaniards in Spain wanted to become quote unquote more white, they got rid of the Moors that was in Spain. Queen Isabel and her husband Ferdinand knew there is no such thing as a biracial running kingdom that is good. Never. We are the only people currently that want to sit there and say, everybody, Rainbow Coalition, we can all be the same. No, brothers, sisters, we are not all the same. Yisrael was meant to be the head of the nations. So either you're the Rosh, the head, or you're the Zanab, the tail. Deuteronomy 28. There's no other position for the house of Yisrael. You understand? So let's go on, brothers and sisters, to the next slide. The matter of the tribe of Simeon and Dan. All right, somebody is asking a question saying, is Yahweh the proper name of Elohim, which was found in the Dead Sea Scrolls, or is it something else? To that, I want to read this. Let's go and let the scriptures answer that for itself. All right, let's go to Ezekiel. All right. Chapter 39, if we will. Ezekiel chapter 39. All right. And we want to read in verse 7 of this particular aspect. All right. And I want to say to the people, I don't mind the correspondence back and forth, but we do have a particular lesson we want to address. It says this. So let's go to Ezekiel 39, verse 7. So I will make my holy name known in the midst of my people Israel, and I will not let them pollute my holy name anymore. And the heathen shall know that I am the Lord, the Holy One in Israel. So that right there, what we just read, is in Ezekiel chapter 39, verse 7. So when we speak about whether the name is said as Yahweh, some say Yahovah, some say Yahuwah, this is perhaps why we have different pronunciations of the same God name, because the Most High himself did not come and tell us yet. So as we read in Ezekiel 39, it says that he, the creator himself, will let Israel know. So until that time, you're going to find perhaps Israelites saying the same name, different ways, speaking of the same God. This is why you find Israelites saying we should say creator, we should say the Most High, we should say the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. This is why you find Israelites saying that, because it brings forth certain aspects of confusion when people may, and I say this in no offense, don't know when to just fall back and say, I don't know, let the creator have that one and he will let us know. So now let us get back into this when it says the matter of the tribe of Simeon and Dan. All right, now what we're looking at, brothers and sisters, on the left-hand side is an emblem, all right, that is speaking about the tribes of Israel. So you have on the top there Reuben, behold the son, Simeon, hearing, Lewi, joined, Judah, Yah is praise, Dan, judge, Naphtali, my contention, God, truth, Asher, happiness, Yissaschar, there is a reward, Zebulun, dwelling, Yosef, adding, Benjamin, son of the right side. All right, so brothers and sisters, we want to sit there and emphasize this for edification purposes. All right, Now, I want to say to the people who are listening, thank you for taking the time and wanting to even be part of this. And to the person who said, thanks, no more questions, don't hesitate to ask the questions, but I will state, brother or sister, well, obviously in this case, from the name, it appears to be a male. Anyone who cares to ask a question or make a comment, please feel free to comment. However, being that we have a particular presentation going on, I will have to address certain things afterward. What I can do is scroll back up and then answer certain things, all right, or address certain things. Or when I get a little better with this, we can correspond verbally back and forth concerning certain subjects. All right. So these are things, and I want to say thank you for even asking any questions. All right. So please don't hesitate to type in and chime in. All right. So thank you for that. So, brothers and sisters, let's continue. All right. Let's go on. Next part to this particular one. We want to address is this, brothers and sisters, which is a common chart, brothers and sisters, that is used among Israelites. Now, what you're looking at on the right hand side, it says the 12 tribes of Israel: Judah, Benjamin, Levi, Simeon, Zebulun, Ephraim, Manasseh, Gad, Reuben, Naphtali, Asher, and Issachar. Now, it says Judah, so called Negroes, Benjamin, West Indians, Levi, Haitians, Simeon, Dominicans, Zebulun, Guatemala to Panama, Ephraim, Puerto Ricans, Manasseh, Cubans, Gad, North American Indians, Simon, Reuben, Seminole Indians, Naphtali, Argentina to Chile, Asher, Colombia to Uruguay, and Issachar, Mexicans. Now, there's a problem, and I say this in due respect, with the 12 tribe chart that is currently in circulation. Because, brothers and sisters, the 12 tribe chart that you see on the right hand side is missing the tribe of Dan. There are different hypotheses, brothers and sisters, on where Dan is. Some people say Dan is destroyed. All right. But we know good and well, as it says in the book of Malachi, that the Most High has not changed. Therefore, the sons of Jacob are not consumed. All right. So if the tribe of Dan, brothers and sisters, is not consumed, right? How then, brothers and sisters, can you have a 12 tribe chart that doesn't have Dan? It's because they take it primarily from an understanding of the New Testament, in which Revelation 7 does not have the tribe of Dan. And misunderstanding Amos chapter 8, verse 14, people are saying that tribe of Dan is destroyed. Now, in the description, I can post, brothers and sisters, where the tribe of Dan is not destroyed at. All right. It's a people in Africa called the Dan people. I've been trying to research them. Now, to the person who typed in, it's a people in Africa called the Dan. I did, brothers and sisters, a presentation in which I spoke about the Dan tribe that live in Liberia. So there's another channel called Mordeh Yeshaya History Lessons. And in that particular one, there's a video called Honor to My Mother, namely my biological mother. And in that video, I showed the images of the people of Dan that live in Western Africa. So brothers and sisters, for those who are interested, that too can be put in the description of this video here. All right, so let's go on, brothers and sisters, for edification purposes, if we will. All right. Now, let's go on to the next part. The matter of the tribes, Simeon and Dan. Now, this is coming out of the book of Joshua. And the second lot came forth to Simeon, even for the tribe of the children of Simeon, according to their families. And their inheritance was within the inheritance of the children of Judah. What are we pointing out, brothers and sisters? That the tribe of Simeon, all right, lived within the tribe of Judah. And they had in their inheritance Be'er Sheba and Sheba and Molada and Hazor Shaul and Bala and Azem and El Tolad and Bethul and Hormah and Ziklag and Bet Marakabot and Hazor Susa and Bet Lebah Ot and Sharuhen, 13 cities and their villages. Now we want to point something out, brothers and sisters, if we will. All right? About this one right here. Sharuhen. Because, brothers and sisters, Sharuhen, when you go into secular history, is where the people who are known as the Hyksos decided to also set up shop. After Thutmose III spoke about defeating the Hyksos, you read about them in the land of Sharuhen. So if you compare biblical history, brothers and sisters, with, quote, secular history, you can begin to know and understand that the people that were in Sharuhen were from, one, the tribe of Simeon, and two, with the people that were also called the Hyksos, but they didn't call themselves the Hyksos. Let's go on to the next slide. Pardon me, to the next part. Ayin and Ramon and Eter and Ashan, 4 cities and their villages. And all the villages that were round about these cities, to Baal Latbi'er, Ramat of the south. This is the inheritance of the tribe of the children of Simeon, according to their families. Out of the portion of the children of Judah was the inheritance of the children of Simeon. For the part of the children of Judah was too much for them. Therefore, the children of Simeon had their inheritance within the inheritance of them. So what are we pointing out, brothers and sisters, is that we see no well. The children of Simeon lived within the tribe of Judah. This is something we want to point out. Now, what we just read came, brothers and sisters, from, all right, the book of Joshua. Okay, so this is something we want to point out for edification purposes, if we will. All right, let's go on to the next slide. And the 7th lot came out for the tribe of the children of Dan, according to their families. And the coast of their inheritance was Zorah and Eshtaol and Ir Shemesh and Sha'alabim and Ayalon and Yetlah and Elon and Timnatah and Ekron and El Taqwe and Gibeton and Baalat and Yehud and Bnei Barak and Gat Rimon and Mir Yarquon and Raquon and the border before Yafo. And the coast of the children of Dan went out too little for them. Therefore the children of Dan went up and fought against Leshem and took it and smote it with the edge of the sword and possessed it and dwelt therein and called Leshem Dan, after the name of Dan their father. What, brothers and sisters, can we point out, brothers and sisters, it says, after the name of Dan, their father. Now, if the Danites was all into the aspect, I love everyone, everyone loves me, Dan, their father, doesn't have that much strength. That's why, brothers and sisters, we want to emphasize to sit there and love your own people. We want to emphasize to love your own people. If that means somebody's going to say, oh, you hate other people, well, that's just your problem. If you find men and women saying, if loving you is wrong, I don't want to be right, that's the same spirit, perhaps, that we should take with our own people. If loving us seems to be wrong when we love us and other people deem us to be, quote, racist, then so be it. Can't sit there and worry about everybody else's claim against you. That's the case, you will never be happy because you can never make everybody else happy. You understand? That's why it says, I love those that love me in the book of Proverbs. See, brothers and sisters, there are so many points to be made when we get into this kind of subject that the aspect of the Rainbow Coalition does not work. It says in the book of Isaiah that our righteousness is as filthy rags. Mesoratutim meluklakim. That's how you say that in Hebrew. Mesoratutim meluklakim. Filthy rags. That is a Hebrew word that doesn't even sound nice. The Hebrew word for dirty is meluklak. You want to be known as safer, which means beautiful, or meluklak. Now, no knocking, no disrespect to Hebrew, but even that word itself doesn't even sound too nice. Who will want to walk around, even if you come in an understanding of Yisrael, and you want to pick a Hebrew name? Something tells me most will not pick the word meluklak. It doesn't even sound nice, nor does it mean something nice. Whereas the word yafa, yafeh, whereas the word safer, safera, so says the word tefira, so says the word yaquara, those things that just seem to roll off, those are beautiful names. Now, if you've been following the Hebrew class, you will know what all those words mean. Tefira, yafa, and safera. Subscribe to the channel, More Yeshaya Hebrew Lessons. All those words are in there. Let's go on, if you will, brothers and sisters. First Chronicles chapter 12, verse 25. Of the children of Simeon, mighty men of valor for the war, 7,100. That, brothers and sisters, is during the time of King David. It says, of the children of Simeon, mighty men of valor for the war, 7,100. You have to know when it's a time for war and when it's a time for peace. The Hebrew word for war is milchama. The Hebrew word for peace, shalom. That's the word meaning peace. You understand? So this is something, brothers and sisters, that we want to point out for edification purposes. All right? Next slide. The kingdoms and the division of the tribes. Now let's look, brothers and sisters, if we will, at this right here. Now, in ancient Israel, this is basically how it was. You had where the highlight part is, where the, what's this thing called? Oh, laser pointer. Okay, right? East Manasseh, West Manasseh, Asher, Naphtali, Dan, as in like Ishmael was up here, Ephraim, Dan that was in the southern part, and as we see Simeon within the land of Judah, as pointed out in Joshua 19. Simeon within the land of Judah. So why does this become important? Because, brothers and sisters, the premise and the thesis of the 12 tribe chart, brothers and sisters, all right, is that we see Simeon here said to be the Dominicans on this chart. Judah said to be the so-called Negroes. Brothers and sisters, if ancient Israel had it to where, as we pointed out in the book of Joshua, chapter 19, that Simeon was living within the tribe of Judah, as shown in this map here. This would be after the division of the kingdom called the southern kingdom, as we see more so here, Judah, the southern kingdom. Simeon, the tribe, would have been in the southern kingdom. So how then, when the Assyrians took the northern kingdom, can you then try to go to the book of Ezra in the Apocrypha and say that when the tribes that was taken to Assyria went to a land that no man dwelt called Asaret and then became the North American Indians for the most part? Simeon would have been still down here in the southern kingdom, which according to that chart, brothers and sisters, the thesis in the take of that chart, brothers and sisters, is that the tribes here, Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, represented the southern kingdom, right? And that when the Romans came, it was Judah, Benjamin, and Levi that was in there that fled to Western Africa. So you have find Israelites saying that the people that was put inside the Atlantic slave trade from Western Africa to the Western Hemisphere is the southern kingdom only. Now, if that is true, then by default, brothers and sisters, if we read Joshua chapter 19, verse 9, out of the portion of the children of Judah was the inheritance of the children of Simeon. So if we are letting the Bible itself speak, as in the case of Joshua chapter 19, brothers and sisters, right? We see, as this map here shows, that Simeon would have been part of that southern kingdom. So this is something, brothers, no, we're not talking about the fake chart. We're talking about the aspect of some different understandings among Israel. All right, because I want to emphasize something. The chart that you see that was being spoken about is not the only chart. The so-called Falashes have a 12-tribe chart that's in Ethiopia. You understand? The Bantu tribe that live in Africa, they have a tribal chart. So it wasn't only the chart that came out of the school from 1 West 125th Street in New York and in America, but there are other tribes in Africa that lay claim to Israel, and they too have a tribal chart. We just in America, so we seem to be also known about that one. You understand? But if you understand, as you may have heard about the so-called Falashes, if you understand, or if you may have heard about the Bantu that say they from Judah, they too have a chart that speak of that. Yeah, so there's more than one tribal chart. But if we know and understand, it says that he, the Most High, he who gathered, pardon me, he who scattered Israel will gather Israel. These 12 tribe charts don't hold that much weight because the Most High did the scattering. It is the Most High who does the awakening. So, be it the so-called Falashes, be it the Bantu, or be it the brothers from 125th Street, be it the Falashes in Ethiopia, the Bantu by the Congo in Africa, or the black man in Harlem, all of them tribal charts is off because it's not what the Most High has sanctioned. Because in Jeremiah, it says, he who scattered Israel will gather Israel. So anyone from the Falashes in Ethiopia to the so-called Negro in Harlem, New York City, that is saying this must be the definitive aspect of a tribal chart is not it, because you're not the Most High. Therefore, you cannot be the one to gather whom the Most High scattered. That's why you find people still saying, we're still looking for the tribes. This is a slap that came from Elohim. So anyone who wants to sit there and say that as Israel was scattered from one end of the earth to the other, anybody saying that this must be the definitive aspect, you're off. Know when to fall back and say, thank the Most High, I know I'm Israel of the house of Israel. Let me live these laws, statutes, and commandments. May the Most High forgive me for my iniquities. That's the energy we should more so come with, not taking anything of loving history. But brothers and sisters, certain aspects can lead into a form of I am this and this is not you. Now, when you deal, for instance, with the slave trade, Barbados was a major port that was open in slavery in the 17th century. There were people taken to Barbados and then reshipped to Virginia. Who is to say that brothers and sisters coming out the same mother and father was not sent to different places, one in Barbados, one in Virginia, one in Jamaica, the other one in Tennessee? You understand? Because we have to remember this slap, as it says, Israel was smitten with the blow of a mighty one. That's in the book of Jeremiah. It says that Israel was smitten with the blow of a mighty one. So we can't sit there while we're coming up from our amnesia from being West Indian, African American, Negro, and so forth and so on, to turn around and say, I know it all. Know when to fall back, O sons of Yisrael. Know when to just say, teach the people, live your life, let your life be an example, and let the Most High open up the eyes. You understand? This may be the reason why there are different even 12 tribe thoughts even coming out of America. You understand? Because be it taking the NIV version or the KJV version, Deuteronomy 28:64 reads the same. So about Israel being scattered from one end of the earth to the other, we have to know good and well understand that there are certain things that Israel, we just don't always know fully. So now, but taking what it does say and understanding that Simeon would have been part, brothers and sisters, of the southern kingdom. There's no way, shape, form, or fashion if Assyria captured the northern kingdom that Simeon would have been part of that. That's why we go and read the book. The kingdoms in the division of the tribes. So the division of the tribes we see here, the kingdom, southern kingdom, as you see where the laser light thing is pointing at there, Judah, south, Israel, northern kingdom right there. And as you see, when you go into the book of Kings, it says that the Most High began to cut Israel short. So therefore, there was less and less Israelites. Like the aspect in the book of Kings when it says there's 7,000 that have not bowed down to the Baal. You understand? So now when we're looking back at this particular point, brothers and sisters, historians will tell you that there were at certain times more Israelites outside of the land of Israel than Israelites inside the land. The book Hebrewisms of West Africa gets into that. All right? So let's go on, if you will. Oh, I want to show this picture right here. This picture right here is the land of Elah. All right? The land of Elah is in the land of Judah. This, brothers and sisters, in the east is part of that holy land of Israel. That we was, of course, this is not as fruitful as it would have been back in the day. You understand? This is part of what we was kicked out of. Now we're living in, quote, the concrete jungle. Now we're living, and after paying off a mortgage, you pay the land tax. And after paying rent for an apartment, you sit there and you leave your children in debt. And after sitting up there and hoping everything will be all right, hey, the job needs you. You understand? So these are things we want to talk about some of the aspects and some of the glorious things that we have lost due to the fact of not keeping the laws, statutes, and commandments of the Most High. You understand? Let's go on to the next slide. catacombs of Israel and Mount Gerizim. Mount Gerizim, brothers and sisters, is in the land of Israel. Now, when you read about the catacombs of Israel, this goes what you see in there on the top with the menorah, where the laser part there thing is at. I want to sit there and show it a little better. Okay, that part didn't work. Let's go back to the laser point thing. Okay, now when you're looking at this here, this comes from the catacombs in the land of Israel. The catacombs that are in the land of Israel is what we want to get into. So even though it is quote unquote March 1st, this is still quote for many of us Black History Month still. So what we want to do, getting into another subject matter, is go, not to be funny or nothing like that, raw and uncensored when we get into the history about us, the land of Israel, and so forth. On the channels I've done, there's a shorter version of the thing called Simeon and Dan. This is like an extended version of such. Now, brothers and sisters, and I say this in due respect, get your paper, get your pad of pen, your pad of paper, and your paper and your pen. Please get your pens and your paper out. Because part of the reason why when I call this Black History Month, brothers and sisters, giving honor and praise to the creator of heaven and earth, what we are about to get into is something that it took a brother days to gather this information. So when a brother does a PowerPoint presentation, this isn't just sporadic, oh, well, 2 hours, here you go. No, this is books, citations, this source, looking at this, taken from that, and still giving a citation of such. What you're looking at there called the catacombs of Israel comes from a place called Beth She'an, within the land of Israel. Beth She'an, brothers, sisters. If we remember earlier, right, about Manasseh, remember I said earlier, remember Manasseh becomes important. Let's see how Manasseh in this subject becomes important, giving honor and praise to Yah Eloheinu. Let's go and see what this is about. Now, image from Beth She'an. Now, when you talk about the catacombs in Beth She'an, this is how the people looked, brothers and sisters. So we want to know and understand this is before the Greeks came in with the Ptolemies. This is before the aspect of the Seleucids, who were the Greek people. This is obviously then before the time of Herod, because Herod came to power when Rome was in power. What do we see there from the images of the catacombs from Bet She'an so we can understand what we're talking about? To me, now being funny, they say what's on the left-hand side is a female. Now, when you find, quote unquote, Black people, if you will, as we can see there, those people will be called Black. Can we say what we're looking at right here, box braids or quote unquote locks, aka dreads? What did that look like? That doesn't look like the goat hair that the Greeks came with. That doesn't look like the goat hair that the Romans painted Alexander as. So what are we talking about when we sit there and look at this PowerPoint here that says Black History Month and showing what we're talking about in the house of Israel? Let's go on as pointed out. As asked, when we are talking about the Se'ar. Se'ar, can anybody type in what does Se'ar mean? Anybody that's able to sit there and hear? Do you know what the word Se'ar in Hebrew means? Type it in if so. The word Se'ar, brothers and sisters, All right? It means hear. Now, the book of Ecclesiastes in the Bible. Say all. Okay, I'm gonna spell it inside of this here. Thank you for asking me to do that. Right? Let's look at the PowerPoint what we're saying. I'm gonna spell it in Hebrew right here. Sin ayin resh. All right, say all. That's how you spell that in Hebrew. Now, what are we dealing with, brothers and sisters, in this particular regard? Right? When you go into the book of Ecclesiastes, what does it tell us? Let your garments remain white, and let your hair lack no ointment. Who is known in the earth to make sure you got to have ointment in your hair? So what I did, I went with my daughter's mother when she went and got her hair done. You understand? My daughter's mother gets at that time a thing they call micro braids. We're talking sitting and sitting and sitting and sitting. Her hair takes a long time to get done. So I decided to ask the person who does hair at the salon there, right? I said, excuse me, who would you say on earth needs more ointment or needs any kind of real ointment for their hair? The lady that was doing my daughter's mother hair, and I don't mean to be funny in saying this, black people. I'm trying to get the African accent as close as I could because that's what the lady was saying. So I said, hold on, in myself then. And I've asked other people who are into hair and so forth and so on, right? When Ecclesiastes in the Bible says, let your hair lack no ointment, what happens when Caucasoid or Caucasians put those ointments in their hair? It doesn't work for them. Instead of it making it nice, it makes it quote unquote matted because their hair is already stringy with that particular aspect. Whereas our hair, people who do hair, and as a person myself who buys things for those hair kind of ointment stuff, we the ones who need that. Black folk. So who was Solomon talking about when he said, let your hair lack no ointment in Ecclesiastes? He wasn't talking to Alexander. He wasn't talking, brothers and sisters, to the descendants of the Ptolemies and the Seleucids. He was talking to the descendants of the people that was in Beit Shean, as you see described and shown in pottery right there for edification purposes. Next slide, let's go on, brothers and sisters. The matter of the Egyptians in Beit Shean. We want to point out that the city known as Beit Shean was noted by Thutmose III to have been taken over by Egypt. Seti I of Egypt spoke of himself defeating the Habiru, who were in Beit Shean. The Habiru were noted since the era of Akhenaten to be a bother to the Canaanites. These Habiru were the Hebrews. What are we dealing with, brothers and sisters? Now, Thutmose III of Dynasty 18 is noted as stated there that took over the land of Beit Shean. So now, when you go, let's just throw this out there, right? That Israel was given to the spoilers. That Israel, the children of Israel, was given to the spoilers. So the writings of Thutmose III, brothers and sisters, and the writings of the house of Yisrael, why do they sound similar? Because this is how you put and show history in context. Many have taught, and I have myself, that Thutmose III of Egypt was the pharaoh of the Exodus, but he was not. Seti of Egypt came after him, And let's see what he was noted for saying. Penetrating into the mass of Asiatics and making them prostrate, crushing the princes of Retanu, reaching the very ends of him who transgresses against his way. He causes to retreat the princes of Karu or Syria. All the boastfulness of whose mouth was so great. Every foreign country of the ends of the earth, their princes say, where shall we go? They spend the night giving testimony in his name, saying, behold it in their hearts. What we just went over in the right side of that particular PowerPoint is a record that Seti the First of Dynasty 19 left concerning the Asiatics. The Asiatics by the Egyptians was called the Amu. Part of the Amu was called the Kabiru. The Kabiru was called that in the Akkadian. But the Egyptian transformation and transliteration of that word is the Apiru. This is why when we sit there and get into the book, Most High willing to come out soon, about Israelites respond to Kemetic claims, all of these kind of sources is going to be pointed out, brothers and sisters. All right? So let's go on to the next particular part. First Chronicles 5 and Judges chapter 1. And the God of Israel stirred up the spirit of Pul, king of Assyria, and the spirit of Tiglath-Pileser, king of Assyria. Now, I want to point out something, brothers and sisters, right? When it says this word here, and, it should say the word even, like E-V-E-N, because Pul, king of Assyria, and Tiglath-Pileser is the same person. All right, so that and there is a poor translation, all right? So it should read, the God of Israel stirred up the spirit of Pul, king of Assyria, even the spirit of Tiglath-Pileser, to emphasize who they're talking about, all right? And he carried them away, even the Reubenites and the Gadites and the half-tribe of Manasseh. See how Manasseh becomes important? And brought them unto Halah and Habor and Harah, and to the river goes on unto this day. So brothers and sisters, this is something we want to point out for edification purposes. Next part, Judges chapter 1. Neither did Manasseh drive out the inhabitants of Bet Shean, as we already described Bet Shean, and her towns, nor Ta'anak and her towns, nor the inhabitants of Dor and her towns, nor the inhabitants of Iblim and her towns, nor the inhabitants of Megiddo and her towns, but the Canaanites will dwell in that land. And it came to pass, when Israel was strong, that they put the Canaanites to tribute and did not utterly drive them out. Brothers and sisters, what we want to point out for edification purposes is that in the book of Judges, which is years before the situation we read in the book of Chronicles, we see that the tribe of Manasseh, as we mentioned earlier, remember that Manasseh is important to this teaching, right? They did not drive out the inhabitants of certain lands and places. So let's see the pottery one more time from Bet Shean. Everyone knows rice is not naturally white. Sugar is not naturally white. Wheat is not naturally white. So the original rice, the original wheat, the original sugar, as well as the original man would have been brown to what you call black skin. So if people of Manasseh are these people here, which I'm claiming, or brothers and sisters, are the Canaanites that the people of Manasseh dwelt among, why do you not see any, quote, racist tractates in the Tanakh against the Canaanites? See, in the Talmud and the Jewish redactions with Rashi, R-A-S-H-I, this is where you get this erroneous story about him being cursed with being black, which is nowhere credited in the scriptures. The ancient Israelites being, quote, black, if you will, seeing, quote, other black people, if you will, did not in the Tanakh authorize the aspect of any what can be understood as a racist tractate, a racist verse. But actually, the hairstyles that's spoken about in Isaiah chapter 3, Ma'aseh Mikshe, difficult hairstyle because our people's hair is difficult to maintain. You understand? It's also not playing economics. It also brings the most money. You understand? That's why people look at people funny when they know the value of our hair, and we sit there and go to the store and buy a wig that was cut off from some baby in East India. They look at you funny when you're doing that because we don't see the power and the value in our own selves. And I want to take time to talk about that. The value in our own selves. This is something we want to talk about for reason and purposes. All right? Now, getting back to the other part, what I'm presenting is that those were Israelites inside of that thing. That's actually pottery that you begin to see there. All right? Let's go on, brothers and sisters. The land of Dan and pottery from Dan. What we're seeing right here is images from the residue, if you will, of where the tribe of Dan was in the north, in the land of Laish. All right? And this right here is pottery from the land of Dan. Now, why does this become important? There's a movie that you can even see on YouTube, right? That movie is called, and I want to type it in, all right? Quilombo, right? In that movie, they show you all kinds of pottery that the Maroons that was in a place in Brazil called Palmares. They used the same kind of pottery and earthen vessels that the people of the tribe of Dan was noted for using in ancient days. That goes into what we're going to discuss later. Let's go on. Next slide. The matter of the tribe of Dan. All right. So we could begin to see something for edification purposes. All right. What you're looking at here, I want to emphasize, I'm going to use the highlighter thing. All right. When it says in that part right there, the white part that's highlighted says Beit Dawid, house of David. All right. House of David. House of David. Beit Dawid. Now let's look, brothers and sisters, and I want to sit there and with the pen circle something, if we will. And then let me highlight something, if we will. All right? You see that part there that's highlighted inside of that rectangular thing? That is the ancient Hebrew way of saying Yisrael. Written inside of something that dates to the 8th century BCE. So this is an actual Hebrew document written on stone that speaks about Yisrael that you see highlighted right there. And then it says beneath that, Beit Dawid, house of David, Yisrael. Now let's show something else. Brothers and sisters, the highlighted part. Right there. So what does that say? That's just been highlighted. Melech. Melech means what? King. Melech Yisrael, Beit Dawid, the house of David, king of Yisrael. the house of David, king of Israel. This is something that was found back in 1994 by archaeologists. So I just wanted to highlight some things of it so it can be shown and known for edification purposes. All right? Let me try to play this and see if it works. Okay, people are telling me they couldn't hear the sound of that particular song. I don't understand why, but we're going to work on that for the future. All right, so let's go on, brothers and sisters, in this particular regard. What we're looking at, all right, over here is other pottery, an image that they are saying is a facial aspect of the people of Dan or Dan. You understand? So this is something we want to point out for edification purposes. All right? So let's go on, if we will, for that. Now I want to emphasize because somebody said that this right here is small on their end. All you got to do is look up the Danites still. All right, and you can begin to see what that's talking about even in this translation. Let's go on, brothers and sisters. All right. The altar found in Dan and manner with Isaiah. Two of the most exciting finds at Tel Dan were a horn altar discovered in 1974 and a plaque with bilingual inscription found in 1976. This is dated to the 9th century BCE or earlier, used to burn incense. Now, in the Bible, in Isaiah chapter 65, verse 3, we see this: a people that provoketh me to anger continually to my face, that sacrifice in gardens and burn incense upon altars of brick. So, brothers, sisters, when it speaks about them dealing with their idolatry and burning incense to other gods, that does not mean that you cannot burn incense. What it's saying is you're not supposed to burn them to other gods. All right, this is what we want to talk about for edification purposes. Let's go on to the next slide. The Elisheba matter in Josiah. This is coming from the book of Kings, 2 Kings 23. All right. And he brought all the priests out of the cities of Judah and defiled the high places where the priests had made offerings from Geba to Beersheba. And he broke down the high places of the gates that were at the entrance of the gate of Joshua, the governor of the city, which were in a man's left hand as he entered the gate of the city. So when we read about them burning altars upon bricks and the horn altars, this is the kind of images that they were actually using to sit there and unfortunately give thanks to other gods. See, this is why henotheism can never work in the culture of the Torah. See, you can't take the pagan, if you want to use that word, or we want to say sinful ways that the house of Israel adopted and then turn right around and say, okay, that must have been the Israelite culture. See, because the archaeologists, they know who the true Israelites are. The people at Tel Aviv University know who the true Israelites are. The people at the Heck Museum in the land of Israel know who the true Israelites are. They don't have a wonder about that, brothers and sisters. They understand fully who the children of Israel are and where, in a great extent, where they were scattered. You understand? The Europeans that you see in the land of Israel are part of the people that Ezekiel 35 talks about. When it says that the land of Israel was taken in the lips of talkers. Okay, we want this for this and we want this for that. And because the true Israelites, since the days of the Ptolemies and then going into the days of the Romans, was pushed out of the land of Israel, we begin to see what has happened. In the future, on this channel, we're going to do a presentation called The Israelites and the Romans and get into that history very intense, partly for edification purposes and partly to smash a concept that has been said about Old Testament based brothers and sisters. See, I don't mean to get sidetracked, but it seems ever so often, and it's not to be haughty, while Tanakh based, Torah based, if you will, by some standard, Old Testament based, hey brother, hey sister, can you give me information on that? Which is not a problem. Here you go, hold that, keep that. You understand? Be the same ones who try to sit there and say Old Testament and Tanakh brothers are this and that. All you got to do is just pay attention to see what's going on. That's why we got to be careful in life. The same people who praise you will try to disrespect you. That's why you don't accept praise from everyone and you don't accept everyone's praises. That's why the book of Job, chapter 32, it says, I know not to give flattering titles unto a man, lest my maker be upset with me. I remember not to be self-centered. The same person, and I'm not going to mention the name, the same exact person, you're the moray, brother, you're the moray. I said, nah, I'm a regular dude. No, you're the moray. Is the same person. When we went over Hebrew, sat there and said, it doesn't matter. Hold on. You said I'm the moray, and then when we go over Hebrew, you're going to say it doesn't matter. That's why you don't accept the praises from everyone. Because the same person who will praise you will attempt to disrespect you. That's why it says commit your works unto the Most High. So when we do our presentation, we're saying giving honor and praise unto Yah, the creator and maker of heaven and earth. And I say this in no disrespect, I represent no camp now. I represent no camp right now. This channel is dedicated to giving 100% homage to Elohei Yisrael, the God of Yisrael. You understand? So we can begin know and understand what it is for edification purposes and still be open to constructive criticism. Next slide, if we will. Conclusion. We should understand that when the Greeks had ruled over where the Israelites were, we see that they wanted to make the Israelites Hellenized. That is to say, Greek in culture. There was a time when the Israelites' writings were burned, and thus the records we have today are not in complete totality of the history of the Israelites. This is why we see, and it came to pass in such and such days, because the stories are picking up from where they was able to sit there and retrieve records of the older times. What we know, what is intact, is the law and the prophets. Thus, we use prophecy along with external history to show who the Israelites are of today. Who are the Israelites of today? Sorry. The understanding of us as Israelites in the Western Hemisphere will continue to grow, and the tribes of Israel will be reunited in righteousness, not by any chart that came out of Harlem, New York City, not by any chart that comes from the Bantu in the Congo, not by any chart that comes from the Falashas in Gondar, Ethiopia. It is going to be, as the Most High said, by his spirit in the book of Zechariah. So these are things we want to point out for edification purposes. All right? Now, as noted there, it says conclusion. Are there any questions, comments that people care to address? We can sit there and address it at this time. Please feel free to type in. All right? Thank you. Last question before you leave. Is King James black or white? Asking for a friend. Okay. All right, somebody said enjoying the live. None for me, Ak, as far as questions, somebody else said, but I do have a request. The same person said, I was hoping you could do one of your teachings on Isaiah 53. They have been a big help for many years, over a decade now. I don't think I've heard it enough, not to flatter you. Okay, thank you, brother Benjamin Yisrael, for that. There will be a presentation as requested concerning Isaiah the 53rd chapter. Somebody wrote excellent lesson, More. Another person wrote one last question before you leave. I don't intend on leaving. Is King James black or white? Asking for a friend. Now, let's understand something, and I say this in edification purposes. King James, that ruled in the 17th century AD in England, after he was King of Scots, right? Was noted as having what we understand as quote unquote Native Americans shipped to England as slaves. When you go into the book Black Indians by William Lawrence Katz, he gets into that. The King James that we read of in history, which is King James the First, was a trader of slaves, of quote unquote Native Americans. Somebody asks, is donations disabled because of the Sabbath? I don't accept like donations on the Sabbath, but this channel doesn't have a donation button anyway. All right. Tomorrow night I can sit there and put in the description if somebody cares to give a donation, but I'm not going to spend it tonight. I'm not going to gather it tonight. Um, and somebody wrote great presentation, Ak. And somebody wrote, please give lots of heads up, even a few days or a week in advance, please, Ak. And I take it that's regarding the aspect of presenting the case on Isaiah, the 53rd chapter, coming from that same person's request. So the answer, going back to the sister question, asking for a friend about whether King James was black or white. We know for certain his mama was not a Negro woman. That's a fact. Was he mixed, as some say? Perhaps. But brothers and sisters, this is no disrespect intended. When we read history, we have to know sometimes how to differentiate between a name and another name. The royal seed of David did not go and become the rulers in Europe. We have to remember about the aspect of Esau going into Europe, because when you get into what's called the Anglo-Saxon, the meaning of Anglo-Saxon is the angelic sons of Isaac. Esau was one of the sons of Isaac. So when we get, brothers and sisters, into the aspect of, for instance, the protocols of the learned elders of Zion, when you get into the aspect, brothers and sisters, of Zionism and Theodor Herzl, everybody in Europe for sure that was claiming any Hebraic aspect was not necessarily, or if at all, of the house of Israel. That's another thing we want to emphasize in that particular regard. So to be more direct, nah, King James ain't us. That ain't us. No. But to be understandable, after King James' death, people were saying that he was a sodomite or a homosexual, which he has not in his lifetime been written off of as. That was a claim made against him after his death because people perhaps did not like him or whatever like that. You understand? So hopefully that question was answered with that. All right? Any more questions, comments, or anything of that sort regarding this? All right? So here we see conclusion, right? Let's go on. Appendix. Because see, remember, not to be funny, as we went in the beginning of this kind of presentation is not like the ones we've done before. And I say we because I have assistants. There are people, sisters, who help me once it comes down to this kind of aspect. And I thank the Most High, the Creator, for them in my life in that particular regard. So when you're putting a book together, all right, it tells you to put the conclusion in an appendix after the conclusion. So if we go back up here, right, we see the conclusion. Now we see the appendix. Now, let us go in for edification purposes. Because remember, we were speaking about the aspect of quote unquote Black history and showing how it connects with us in the house of Israel. Let's go in, brothers and sisters. The Lachish matter in Isaiah. This becomes of interest since there are some who ask for evidence of Hebrew writing which date before the time of Herod of Idumea. Now, that goes along with the question that somebody asked right there. Who do you believe Esau is? Esau is Edom, says the book of Genesis. Edom was known during the time of the Greeks and later the Romans as the Idumeans. All right, so we already went through the conclusion. This here is now the appendix. This is how, giving thanks to the creator of heaven and earth, this is how we want to come and present things to the people. And as we see, somebody just happens to ask a question that goes in line with the aspect of Idumea and Edom. The children of Esau, one thing it says of it, it says, is not his hidden places sought out? Is not Esau searched out? The land where the ancient Edomites lived, or even in the book of Joshua, was by the land of Judah. The Edomites were noted for doing two things in history. One, going over into the lands of the Europeans. Two, going, believe it or not, into the land of Nigeria. There is a tribe in Nigeria, West Africa, that is referred to as the Edu or the Edu people. And we're talking Wesley Snipes complexion. And they say that they are the lineal descendants of the house of Esau. Look them up. Look up Edomite tribe in Nigeria, in West Africa. There's a people referred to themselves as the Edu people, and they themselves are laying claim to say that they are the Edomites. So when I'm asked who do I believe Esau is, mixed in with the European Japhetic nations, as well as people who decided to scatter to western parts of Africa. That's hopefully answers that question. Now, what we're looking at, brothers and sisters, all right, in this right here, Yod, Sheen, Ayin, Yod, Hey. Yod, Sheen, Ayin, Yod, Hey. Yod, Sheen, Ayin, Yod, Hey. Let me sit there and circle that so we can gain something for edification purposes. All right? Yod, Sheen, Ayin, Yod, Hey. You know what that spells in Hebrew? Yeshaya. Yeshaya is transliterated as Isaiah. So this is part of one of the things called a bula, which is basically a rock or a stone that somebody etched in one's name in. And we can obviously see it's Hebrew. And it was found in the land where ancient Judah lived. In the beginning of this presentation, brothers and sisters, we know and understand that we've shown the land of Elah, where, brothers and sisters, where there were people of Judah. What we're looking at down here, all right, I want to get to the highlighter part aspect, the laser point aspect, is part of the Lachish letters. Now, both this here that you see and this here that you see, both date as Hebrew writing before the time of Herod. People in the Kemetic community, brothers and sisters, usually ask, is there any Hebrew writing before Herod? And it dawned on me, like, hold on, Herod himself is noted as speaking of himself as an Idumean. He was the son of Antipater. And Herod was first, brothers and sisters, friends with the guy of Rome named Julius Caesar. Pardon me, Antipater was his friend. You understand? When Mark Antony of Rome was defeated by Octavian, aka Augustus, Herod, the son of Antipater, joined up with Mark Antony's conqueror. That is to say, Herod became friends with Augustus. So we already know that we see a linkage in business, not in seat line, between the Romans and the Idumeans. So when we read, for instance, in the Dead Sea Scrolls, that when Rome attacked Israel, the ancient Israelites recorded them as being Edom or Esau, is because the Romans and the Edomites were in cahoots with each other. That's why. It's not saying the Romans were the lineal descendants of the house of Esau, because the Romans had their own name for Esau. All right, so this is something we want to point out. So when we look, brothers and sisters, at this here, the Lachish letters, this is dated to the 6th century BCE. This is dated, brothers and sisters, to the 8th or 9th century BCE, all before the timing of Herod. By the way, Herod died in 4 BC. Let's go on to the next slide. Or 4 BCE. This is part of what we're getting into. Yehukal and Padiah. All right? What you're seeing right here, Yehukal, Yod, Hey, Wow, Kaf, so Kaf, and the Lamed. Yehukal. Yehukal is written of in the book of Jeremiah, brothers and sisters. And what we're singing here is another Bula, when it speaks of Padiah, the son of King Jehoiakim. Jehoiakim is written of in the book of Kings. What is the point in going over this? Is because it's showing you Hebrew artifacts and Hebrew writings for those who want to just sit there and be interested. That's why I said in the beginning of this, we'll be getting into archaeology as well. All right. So this is something, brothers and sisters, we want to point out for edification purposes. Okay. Let's go on, if we will, to the next part. Gedaliah and Isaiah. All right. Now, let's show this here. Gamel, Dalet as the triangle. Lamed, the L sound. Gedal, the Yod, and the Hey, and the Wow. Gedal Yahu. You read of him in the book of Jeremiah as well. Now, let's see, brothers and sisters, what we can show for edification purposes. All right? This here being highlighted. Gedal Yahu. What does that mean? Gadal or Gadal or Gadol means great or big. So Gedaliah means the Most High is exalted, the Most High is magnified, the Most High is great. Okay? So we went over, brothers and sisters, for those who are interested, that when people attempt to say that Yah is a moon god, such is not the case. All right? Let's go on, brothers and sisters, and show what we're looking at on this side here. This right here is the Isaiah scroll from the Dead Sea Scrolls. This is one of the most ancient writings that they have found in history. You understand? And this goes into the aspect of understanding the language itself, so that way somebody can't give you a dubious translation. Okay? That's why things like that is important. Let's go on, if we will, to the next slide. The Shebna seal. All right? Sheen, baked, noon, shown clearer here. All right? Shebna is also written in the book of Jeremiah. So we begin to see centuries before Herod, because remember, he died in 4 BC. Right? Herod was made ruler by the Romans. This becomes important because a lot of people attempt to state, oh, there's no Hebrew writing before Herod. That's why I'll go over these kind of aspects right here. You understand? Because even the Dead Sea Scrolls dates before the time of Herod. All right? The Septuagint dates before the timing of Herod. So this is something we want to talk about for edification purposes. Next slide, if we will. The Philistines, I contend, are part of the Minoans who came from Crete. All right? Now, what are we looking at, brothers and sisters? If I can be heard, give me a 1. The Philistines, I contend, are part of the Minoans that came from Crete. This, brothers and sisters, is how the Minoan people looked for edification purposes. So the Philistines that the Israelites would have been familiar with looked like that, for example. All right, next slide. If I can be heard, give me a 1, brothers and sisters. Thank you. The Philistines from Kaftor. Are ye not as the children of the Ethiopians unto me, O children of Israel, saith the Lord. Have not I brought up Israel out of the land of Egypt, and the Philistines from Kaftor, and Aram from Kir? What are we looking at? This is from the book of Amos, chapter 9, verse 7. And it says, have not I brought up Israel out of Egypt and the Philistines from Kaftor? Kaftor is also known as Crete, which is an island inside of the Mediterranean. So this is something we want to point out for edification purposes. Next slide. What are we looking at here, brothers and sisters? This is something, because remember, in this what's called conclusion appendix, we went into the aspect of talking about quote unquote Black history. And let's see what we're talking about. Let's go on. The Jukun people in Nigeria. Let's see what they are saying of themselves. They say they come from Yemen, which is in southern Saudi Arabia. The Jukun Kona address themselves as Jiba and speak the Jiba dialect. They trace their origin to the Middle East, precisely Yemen. Yemen is in part of what they call, as stated there, the Middle East. So you mean to tell me that this man that we see there on the left-hand side, his people are saying that they come from an Asiatic country? So this shows you, quote unquote, Black people outside of continental Africa. Let's go on. From Yemen, they migrated to Egypt and then to the Chad Basin, where they settled at Naga Zagamu, Bornu state of Nigeria, with the Kanuri people. Now, if the Jukun in Africa, in Nigeria precisely, all right then, are saying that they come from the land that we call in part the Middle East, why will it be far-fetched for the Israelites who are also living in what you call the Middle East to also go to Western Africa? Because see, when it says that Jacob went into the land of Egypt with 70 souls, because Joseph was in Egypt already, he was not the only people migrating to Egypt. The famine brought a lot of people to Egypt. Jacob is noted in the Tanakh because it's the Israelites' book, but Jacob and his family wasn't the only ones that went to the land of Egypt during that time. So if you already can see that you have people going into Egypt from what's called Asiatic countries, we already spoke about Seti of ancient Egypt attacking the people of the Amu, or the Asiatic people. So the Egyptians, who were, in layman terms, Africans. Now, mind you, Mizraim in the Bible, remember, Mizraim in the Bible, in the book of Chronicles, it says what? That he sired Kaftor, which came forth the Philistines. So the Philistine people, brothers and sisters, are genetically and physiologically connected to the ancient Egyptians. The Egyptians are the ancestors in part of the Philistines. So when David was battling with Goliath, the Philistine, Goliath's ancestry goes back to the ancient people of Kemet, of ancient Egypt. And where were the Philistines? It says that they were also coming out of the land of Kaftor. Kaftor was also called Crete, which is an island in the Mediterranean. So when you go to Egyptian writings, like the Epira Papyrus of Dynasty 13, that speak about ancient Egyptians being in different parts throughout the Mediterranean, it's not hard to figure out how to put one and two and come to understanding. You understand? So the Israelites also noted in their own writings as migrating to the land of Egypt in a time when the Persians were ruling. This is how you get, brothers and sisters, the thing that is called the Elephantine Papyrus. The Elephantine Papyrus is written in Aramaic. Aramaic goes back to the linguistics of the mothers of the Israelites. Because Leah and Raquel were Aramean. Do you see how all of this connects? Don't give me no European Jew. He don't fit in this story. He don't fit in the African nor the Western Asiatic. Well, what if they want to serve the Most High? That's between any man and his maker. That's between any man and his maker. Deuteronomy tells us the Most High separated the nations according to the number of the houses according to the number of the families of Israel. So there are order and stipulations with certain things. Certain nations just don't mix with certain nations. And if you think that's a lie, certain herbs in the earth don't work for certain people. Did you know that? Did you know that the Europeans in the land of Israel today have one of the highest cases of skin cancer? Because the aspect of the climate of the land of Israel is not healthy and conducive to Europeans. The land knows. You understand? So these are things, brothers and sisters, we want to point out for edification purposes. This is not racist. This is truthist, if there's a such word. You know what I'm saying, or what I'm getting at. All right? So, brothers and sisters, this man that we see here in the picture is part of the Jukun people that live in Nigeria. They lay claim to come from a place that is south of Saudi Arabia. So when they try to now come with the Ptolemy-looking Arab, the Seleucid-looking Arab, and I don't mean no disrespect, the Saddam Hussein-looking ones, you understand? The Tariq Aziz-looking ones, you understand? The people that's in the back of the pharmacy in Brooklyn-looking ones, the Arabs that you see. No, we got to understand how the people that was in Arabia truly looked. Read the book Babylon and Timbuktu and about the aspect of Yathrib. Yathrib is a place in Saudi Arabia where Israelites live. Muhammad, who was the prophet, according to the Islamic understanding, Muhammad was a prophet in their understanding. His uncle was taught by Israelites. The original doctrine of Islam had it to where the people face Jerusalem. This is why in the Quran, chapter 17, in the Quran, chapter 17, there is a portion that says, we first, speaking of Ishmael or the Arabs, in part with the people of Yoktan. Because remember, Yoktan is also a descendant of the people of the East. You understand? They said in chapter 17 of the Quran, do you know the name of that chapter? It's the Arabic word Bnei Yisrael, which means what? The children of Israel. There is a chapter in the Quran called the children of Israel. And in that chapter, they say we sent out our missionaries, our soldiers to sit there and teach. But when the people of Islam, the Arabians, if you will, when they first encountered the Israelites, you understand? Allah has said, so the Israelite mind will say, Eloha, which is the way to say God according to the book of Job in the Bible. No, not Eloha, Allah. Elohim. No, not Elohim, Allah. Listen, Ishmael, Yotam, whatever you're dealing with, bye-bye. We're not accepting that. So then you begin to see the violent aspect of what they call the jihad or the jihad. You understand? This is one thing, and it's not to sound funny. Personally, that I give respect to Christianity more than Islam, because Christians will tell you, yes, we had the good ship, Jesus. People in Islam, no, he wasn't a part of the slave trade. Them Arabs will try to deny that left and no, he wasn't part of the slave trade. No, that didn't happen. That's not us. Christians, Catholics, they don't care. Seem like, yeah, there was a pope that was blessing the slave ships. Yeah, when they showed the cross in the movie Amistad, it was baptizing the slaves in the slave ship. That is a fact. Christian preachers will tell you that. The imam in the mosque, the Muslim leader, will he sit there and admit to what the Arabs did to the black man? Why is it that this terminology in Arabic, brothers and sisters, called abd, which means servant, is a slang term in Arabic for the black man? You understand? This is something we want to point out. When you go into a book called Black Southerners by John Bowles, the last name Boles, that book speaks about that the Arabic term abd is a slang term that they use in Islam as servant, aka slave, aka the black man. You understand? So this is something we want to point out for edification purposes. So speaking, going back into this particular subject about the migration of the people that we see right here, that we see in Nigeria, they say they come from a land that is part of what they call the Middle East. So when the Kemetic community tried to sit there and say, well, you know what, we are African only, and it stops at right before the Sinai. You have marginalized the melanated or the melatonin, aka black people. Israelites were not the only black nation of ancient times. They were one of the several ones. Next slide. Ah, of the land of Ghana, where are they from? Now, unfortunately, the sound didn't come out earlier with the people drumming. That was based in North Carolina. But let's see what this is right here. This says Ga, of the land of Ghana, where they are from. That's a question. Let's see what they say where they're from. Next slide part, that is. Oral history had it that Ga Dogma, that's how it's said to be pronounced when I was in college. That's what they was telling me. The Games or Ga Dogma. That's what they told me when I was in college. Because I asked them, I said, how do you pronounce that? They were saying you either say Ga Dogma or the Gamas. That's what two people told us. So I'll go with that. Okay. Oral history had it that the Ga Dogma people migrated from Israel in the 6th century BC through Egypt, then to Ethiopia, having been expelled, or exiled by the Assyrians. Brothers and sisters, let's go in the Bible, if we will, which is not part of the slide, but let's go and see something, brothers and sisters, right? Let's go, if we will, to the book of 2 Kings. We want to go to 2 Kings chapter 18. And what does it say? Now it came to pass in the 3rd year of Hoshea, king of Elah, pardon me, and it came to pass in the 3rd year of Hoshea, son of Elah, king of Israel, that Hezekiah, the son of Ahaz, king of Judah, began to reign. Now let's go, if you will, to verse 13. Now in the 14th year of King Hezekiah, did Sennacherib, king of Assyria, come up against all the fenced cities of Judah and took them. And Hezekiah, king of, we are in the book of 2 Kings 18. And Hezekiah, king of Judah, sent to the king of Assyria to Lachish. We spoke of the Lachish letters, did we not? Okay, let's go. Saying, I have offended. Return from me. That which thou puttest on me will I bear. And the king of Assyria appointed unto Hezekiah, king of Judah, 300 talents of silver and 30 talents of gold. So Hezekiah, king of Judah, was in the 6th century BCE, pardon me, the 7th and 6th century BCE, right? So now, if we're talking 6th century BCE, that means it's, in layman terms, 500 something BCE. When we're looking at that slide right there, right? 500 something BCE, brothers and sisters. What are we dealing with? According to the oral history of the people that you see in the picture there, it says they migrated from Israel about the 6th century BCE through Egypt, then to Ethiopia, having been expelled or exiled by the Assyrians. So when the Assyrians had ruled in Lachish, you read about the same city, Lachish, in the book of Joshua 15. You read about it in 2 Kings chapter 18. And you read about the city of Lachish, brothers and sisters, when you go into the book of Jeremiah 34. It says, after Nebuchadnezzar had defeated the tribe of Judah, it says Lachish was one of the lands that still had some of the people still there. So where did the people go, brothers and sisters, that were noted for not being there in Jeremiah 34? Do you see how the history connects? Let's see. In Ethiopia, they settled in the Gondar province in northern Ethiopia, where the Blue Nile originates. The Nile starts in Ethiopia, brothers and sisters. These people that live in Ghana are saying in their oral history that they came out of Israel through Egypt, through Ethiopia, settled there, and then eventually went west. So when we show that map as shown in Hebrew, that book Hebrewisms of West Africa, that's according to oral traditions that's even the people in Africa. So no disrespect one more time to the 12 tribe charts. And it seems to induce that spirit of, quote, forget the African. We can't do that. Ancient Israel was noted by the Romans as Ethiopians. And as pointed out, the black man shipped to North America was also noted as Ethiopians. We pointed out before last week, all right? Get the connection? Next slide. The matter of the Falashas. And as you see here, people that are in Ethiopia that lay claim, and what you see behind them is one of their places of worship, right? Inside the land of Ethiopia that lay claim to being of the house of Israel. All of this is in continental Africa, brothers and sisters. When they had in 1984 Operation Moses, and in 1991 Operation Solomon, in which they straight up jerked the people left and right. That's another subject. All right. They did not want this to be reported. The Daily News of New York, the New York Post, wasn't really reporting on Operation Moses in 1984. The New York Times was reporting on it. According to the oral history of the people that are called Falashas, they say that they are one of the several groups of Israelites. And as noted, they even have their own 12 tribe chart, which is people just want to say this, that, or the third. But what they say of themselves, brothers and sisters, is that there are Israelites in America. See the name just typed in, right? Adisu Musala. Look him up. He was part, and he is part of the so-called Falashas. He said in an interview, we thought all the Jews, for the lack of a better word, we thought all the Jews in the world were black. So if this man in the 20th century is noted for saying that the philosophers thought all the Jews, all the people, if they want to use that terminology, because they really use the terminology Beta Yisrael, all right? If they thought that all of their scattered brothers and sisters throughout the world were black, and the so-called philosophers also say that America has Israelites in it, who are they talking about being the Israelites that's in America? Why did the land of Elah, as we shown earlier, and as we showed the land of Dan earlier, where they found that horn altar at in this presentation, right? Why is that land vacant and the black woman has to sit there and think, I got to pay my mortgage while I'm in New York? Why are we as black people running from New York, like I intend to do, to the South? Because, you get more for your dollar over here. Why don't we have rest for the sole of our foot in Brooklyn, in Harlem, in Queens? Why do we find it better to go back to the same state that the black man was lynched on trees? Because Yisrael has no rest for the sole of their foot in the land of their captivity. That's why. That's why, hey, I'm going south with a big cheese grin on your face. You understand? Why is the land of Israel vacant and we running from state to state in America trying to sit there and still find some kind of hope? Because we're not in our resting place. That's why. The land of Israel is vacant of its true inhabitants, while we are in the West, pining away, unfortunately, in our iniquities. How do you have an Israelite sister murdered by an Israelite? Did you find that out just this past week? It came out. Israel, we got to do better. There's an Israelite brother that murdered an Israelite sister. It came out this week online. What are we doing, sons of Judah? Dan, Gad, Manasseh, and Ephraim? And the other, what are we doing? Did not the Most High say, Lo tirazak, thou shalt not murder? What is going on? Why are their sisters making videos about camps? They're so oppressive. The camps are oppressive. It's the same complaint that the Israelites brought to Rehoboam in the time of after Solomon. Your father, hey, Rehoboam, your father was an oppressor. Everyone, Solomon was rich. Solomon was wise. He was an oppressor. He loved foreign women, and he had Israelites building houses for his foreign wives. You understand? So these are things, brothers and sisters, that we want to go over and show and present for, as we know, edification purposes. There ain't supposed to be no Israelites murdered by another Israelite, same camp or different camp. How is that possible? How are there Israelites that shed the blood of another Israelite? That's the spirit, no disrespect intended, that Saul had. We spoke about Saul earlier. I want to kill David because David's getting more clout than me. Saul, you already king. You're not happy with that? No, I'm not comfortable in my own position. Even though David respects me, I'm still going to sit there and pout and be upset. I'm going to front or fake as if I like David when I hope David dies. So why would you expect Saul, who hoped David would die, to be a nationalist to go against the Amalekites. The Amalekites who descended from the oppressors of the Israelites, who were the Amalekites. Saul doesn't have a mind to say, you know what? They did oppress and attack the feeble when we left up out of the land of Egypt. Avenge the blood of your ancestors, Saul. Shema El Eloheinu. Listen to our power. I remember when I brought Yisrael up out of Egypt and how the Amalekites attacked. Avenge for the blood of your ancestors. Saul didn't understand nationalism. You know what, Saul? Nisraf Ata, you're fired. Black men, go for me. Ani Maquim et Dawid ben Yishai. I am establishing David, the son of Jesse, who was about, in layman terms, bringing it to the enemy. I don't remember, correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't know everything, about David ever looking forward to sitting up there beating up another Israelite. When the lovers, and I say this not sexually, when the lovers and the people who mourn for Saul threw dirt, literally, there's a guy named Sheba of the tribe of Benjamin. When David walked by, he cursed David and took dirt and threw it at him. David's soldiers, yo, son, we about to slap this dude. No. Don't slap him up. David had to tell his soldiers, leave Sheba of Benjamin alone. I know the heart, because remember, he still had respect for Saul. He still had respect for Jonathan, and he still had respect for that time, Michal, who was the daughter of Saul, his wife. Don't attack Sheba. Sheba is the same tribe as Saul. He loved Saul. Yeah, he cursed me. Yeah, he threw dirt on me, literally threw dirt on him. But David had to quell his men. Don't get at this guy. I understand why he's feeling that way. David understood when a person was, quote, in their feelings, as Sheba of Benjamin was. Saul is displaced with David. Next thing to do, hate on David. I'm not going to let that man bring me to his level. Sheba is in his feelings. The Most High has appointed me to do something. And it's not to sit there and be an enemy against other Israelites. You understand? So David knew his place and his role as a leader. He wasn't perfect, but the Most High knew who he picked. Somebody wrote, impale people think that they don't have to pay for their ancestors' evil. They reap the benefits of their ancestors. It's fear they should pay. Now, recently, there's been a big thing, right? Right? About politicians on the Democratic thing talking about reparations. Brothers and sisters, they can never give reparations. The Most High said, kai takakai, life for life. The Most High said, whosoever stealeth from man and treat him as a slave shall surely be put to death. And for us who understand and can expound upon, in slavery, they gave us another God. So no, you can't pay for that by monetary action. You see, when Freddie Gray died by the hands of the police in Maryland, the state of Maryland or the city of Baltimore paid his mother off. So the cops were, in their own way, justified or cleared because the city paid the people off who were murdered by the police. So we can't even think to fathom to accept a payment of money from them, because then how will the Most High judgment come upon them? They know good and well what Psalms 81 says. Oh, that my people will hearken unto me. I would soon subdue their enemies. Don't you know they survived by the broken family? Do you know the Torah says you shall diligently teach your children? You know when you don't teach your children, you know you're not doing your job? Hey, Saul, part 2. Hey, black man, pay attention. Saul, same spirit, Saul, knock, knock, pay attention. You're not doing your responsibility. Saul didn't do his responsibility, and the Most High removed him from being king. So when you have a child and don't teach your child, as it tells you in Torah, Deuteronomy chapter 11, verse 19, you shall diligently teach your children. When you rebel against the laws of the Most High, don't wonder why your children raise up against you, unfortunately. What did you teach him or her? You understand? These are things we need to sit back and think and apply. You see those people there in that picture, the Falashas? Not hating on them. They didn't follow that law about teaching their children. See, a lot of them that was airlifted to what they call over in the land of Israel, and what they call that is Operation Moses and Operation Solomon. You know, a lot of those children that grew up from that 1984 era who are now grown are women who sleep with women. Did you hear what I just said? There are so-called Falasha women that are sleeping with other women carnally. That's what happens when you let the children sit there and be put in the hands of the enemy. Well, Ethiopia was too bad, so let's just sit there and let's take the kashrut. Let's deal with the no-hot laws. And let's let the Europeans, unfortunately, come and recircumcise the so-called Falasha males. So even though they were circumcised, before they airlifted them over to the land of Israel, they took needles and put it inside the hole of the penis of the Falasha males and extracted blood. That's what the Jewish man did. Now what I'm presenting, you have people that were airlifted and now under the dogma of European Talmudic aspect in Haifa, Israel, where the ancient tribe of Naphtali used to live. You know what some of them unfortunately are doing? I'm going to type it in first, sadly. You know what that word says? That's crack. Do you know what crack is? They take a pot, put it over the fire with water in it, and take a substance called cocaina, the yayo or cocaine, and they boil the cocaine inside that water. And they do this and they do that and put other things with it, and then they get a thing called crack. How do you have people that come out of saying they of the house of Israel, now under the Talmudic thing in the land of Israel, that's smoking crack? The women are doing cunnilingus on other women. What has the world come to? They are smoking crack. I've seen crack smoke as a child when I was living in Brooklyn. And everybody know you had that uncle or that aunt that was on it. We just going to talk candid on that. In my family, there were those who smoked it and those who sold it. All I'm going to say on that. You understand? How? When you sit there and you have that sad spirit that Saul had. Well, I fly upon the spoil. And now this is the result of it. You have so-called Falashas, brothers and sisters, that smoking crack in the land of Israel, like they do in Harlem. There are women among them, brothers and sisters, that are doing cunnilingus, that is to say, oral sex with other women. That's what happens when you join on to the side of the enemy. Your daughters get turned out. Your sons get pacified. So a real woman doesn't want that kind of man. He's a weakling. He's not an alpha male. He's broken. Frederick Douglass says, you can't fix one that's broken. Frederick Douglass said, a broken man cannot be fixed. That's something that's going to have to come from internal with that person. You understand? So these are things brothers and sisters, we want to show and go over. So when we talk about archaeology, history, linguistics, and so forth, I wanted to end this off inside of the appendix of this kind of teaching with what's going on today. Let's go on. Preparing for life in Israel. An ordinary day at a Jewish agency synagogue in Gondar. Gondar, as we shown earlier, brothers and sisters, all right, is in Ethiopia. Preparing for life in Israel. What happened with that? The woman went from afros to perms. Some of that too. They had the men, just like they talking about a draft these days, they drafted the men into the army. Did you know, and this is not to sound hating or nothing of that sort, did you know that when they gave the Israelites that left out of America under the leadership, may he rest in peace now, under the leadership of Ben Ami, when they gave them citizenship in Dimona and this Ramon, do you know they had to sit there and sign to be part of the Israeli army? Why do you think some of the men that's in Dimona, some of the women that's in Dimona hate the Arabs? Not that the Arabs are their friends that much either. But I remember speaking to one and I said, if I ever go to Israel and traveling, I want to go to Hebron. Hebron is run by the stinking Arabs. I was like, what? Dude, your mommy was born and raised in Chicago. Your mommy and daddy come from Detroit. You're first generation in the land of Israel. But because you took the Judaic side, you now hate on the Arabian side. Meanwhile, neither one of them really like you, black man. This is what happens. This is what happens when you side with the enemy. When they gave them Israeli citizenship with Dimona and Rizpah Ramon, they had to sit there and be part of the Israeli army. Now, the black man in America, you want a good place to live? Join my army. We'll even give you a free burial plot. So you can live happily ever after and then die right here for free. Because when you are in the military, they give you a free burial plot. Because I remember when somebody in my close one, loved one, the army came and they folded up the flag over the casket and they gave it to a relative and so forth. I was like, oh, wow, that's deep. These are the things that happen when we don't have our own brothers and sisters. We have to get back to our own, and we can only do that by loving one another. Now, somebody had asked, I wonder if by murdering each other, that is profaning the Most High's holy name in the sight of the nations. I wouldn't see why that would not be. Somebody else asked, can these bones live? When Ezekiel, brother Benjamin Yisrael, when the Most High asked Ezekiel that, the response was, Ataya data, only you know. Because when Ezekiel saw what we are living today, I'm not going to say yes or no. Only you know, for you know all things, oh great one. You know what Ezekiel saw? He saw the Momo thing that they putting on YouTube where children are told to hurt themselves. You know what Ezekiel saw? He saw Planned Parenthood in the Bronx. When Ezekiel was asked, can these bones live? Ezekiel saw Richard Porter and Al Post selling crack to their own people. That's what he saw. You understand? When he was asked, son of man, can these bones live? He saw, just to go for edification purposes, he saw little Kim. That's what he saw. He saw sisters who sit back, as it says in Proverbs 7, that dress with the attire of a harlot. I don't understand why they just view me as such. It's because of the energy that you're putting out. You understand? What did Ezekiel see when it says, can these bones live? I'm your mother and your father. He ain't here. I'm your father. That is what Ezekiel saw. So his response, only you know. Cain, he saw the valley of death, finality of dry bones, but as he continued to watch those burns, he saw life, restoring power of the Most High, right? Yes. The Most High is that great phenomena that the Willie Lynch letter spoke about. Our scientists told us that a great phenomena will come and reverse what we have done to the slaves. That's the Most High Spirit that it talks about in the book of Zechariah. Not by might, not by strength, but by my spirit, saith Yahweh of hosts. The God that they don't want us to know and talk about. YHWH. Yod-Heh-Wah-Heh. The God that the Romans hated. The God that the Egyptians hated. Did you know that? As we pointed out before. YHWH is mentioned in the Egyptian temple of West Amara in the 18th dynasty of Egypt. The YHWH, the God that is hated by the Egyptians. The same Egyptians that were okay with the man sitting down to urine. The same Egyptians that were some of the first ones to practice genetic engineering. We're going to take this and splice it with this. That's why you see don't follow the ways of Mizraim, the ways of Egypt, because these men do these kind of things. Each seed begets after its own kind. Yet you see the Egyptian wall is painting when a man, Hapi, the Egyptian now god, had female breasts. The Egyptian now god had female breasts. And now in this new Mizraim, the Egypt by ships, here we see my two mommies being read to little girls. That you can be a boy when you want and a girl when you want. Are we serious? You can be a boy or a girl when you want to. That's what Ezekiel saw. Then he said unto me, son of man, these bones are the whole house of Israel. Behold, they, Israel, say, what does Israel say? Our bones are dried, and our hope is lost. We are cut off from our parts. What parts are we cut off from? Our culture, our language, our history, our culture, our land. Our language, our culture, our history, our laws, and our land. Did you know, brothers and sisters, that when they had for the black man the 13th, 14th, and the 15th, you know what that's called? Amendments. The black man was not included in the first aspect of the Constitution. That's why Malcolm X said, when a black man talks about his constitutional right, you are a fool. You understand? So, brothers and sisters, this is not meant to be insulting. This is not meant to be depressing. But we want to show the aspect of what happened with us as a people. Now, why did I pick the name Simeon and Dan? Simeon was in the north, the southern kingdom, and Dan was in the north. And some Israelites say Dan is destroyed. So that's why that topic was being brought up. All right. Ezekiel chapter 37 goes on to say, therefore prophesy and say unto them, thus saith the Lord God, behold, O my people, I will open your graves and cause you to come up out of your graves and bring you into the land of Israel. And you shall know that I am Yod-Heh-Wah-Heh when I have opened your graves, O my people, and brought you up out of your graves. There's a part in Ezekiel 37 when he said, breathe upon these slain. Breathe upon these slain. Ezekiel chapter 3, it tells us that the children of Israel will eat their bread defiled and compared the food that Israel will eat like the food or the thing that Ezekiel was told to eat. Cow feces. We're eating garbage. You understand? You put feces to sit there and put things into the earth for it to sit there and germinate and be able to grow better. The food we eat today in Ezekiel, the 3rd chapter, is compared to the same thing as cow feces. You're eating feces in the eyes of the ancient Israelites, brothers and sisters. And when I say you, I'm talking about us. So these are things when it says we are cut off from our parts, our land, our culture, our history, our language, and our laws. You have Israelites that are online that say we cannot keep the commandments. Bye-bye. Stay away from my daughter. Stay away from my home. Because you were still a quarter, and because we can't expedite judgment and justice, you feel you can just get away with stuff. Be leery of the people who go around teaching, we can't keep no laws. The Most High said, some will wake up to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt. So saying you can't keep no laws, that's a shameful thing. That's not something to even want to sit there and be proud of. Well, can we keep the laws? Do you honor your mother? I hope so. Do you honor your father? I hope so. And what we are doing today, brothers and sisters, as quote in current events as the black man, many of us were raised without fathers in the home. So it's more of a pressure once it comes down to us as now men, because we got to sit there and now find out how to be certain kinds of men. That's why in the book of Amos, it says, take heed to the elder at the gate. Listen to the elders, even if they're not your biological parents, and find out wisdom that you can glean from them, brothers and sisters. And sisters, wa'akyot, hermanas, whatever language you want to say, because our women, our sisters, our elders, our women, our daughters, the females of our people, and I say this in no hating, have to be checked. When you find, and I'm not condoning the celebration of the pagan Mother's Day and Father's Day thing, when you find black women gathering together as women in my immediate family is when I was like, wow. And they're having a party for another black woman talking about Happy Father's Day. We have a problem. When women tell women Happy Father's Day, don't sit there and wonder why it says we are in the land of the graves in Ezekiel chapter 37. You understand? Next slide. The Beta Israel lived in northern and northwestern Ethiopia, and more than 500 small villages spread over wide territory. Most of them were concentrated in the area around into the north of Lake Tana, which is the beginning of part of the Nile, in the Gondar region, among the Wal Kwayit, Shire, pardon me if I mispronounce it, and Selet, Dembia, Segelt, Quara, and Besela or Bisela. All right. So right there we can see right there Gondar. Now the reason why I pointed that out with the Gondar is because it says here about the oral tradition of the people of in Ghana in part. It mentions in Ethiopia they settled in the Gondar province. So these people were settling in the same place where these people still are. And both of them are saying, one in East Africa, the other in West Africa, that they come from the land of Israel. Brothers and sisters, giving honor and praise to the Most High, the Creator and the Maker of heaven and earth. There will be some videos when this is uploaded that's put in the description for edification purposes. With that, Torah, Shalom, La Tov, Shabbat Shalom Lechem, Lahitodah Ot. Please subscribe to the channel, share the video, leave your comments, hit that bell thing so you can know when we go back live again. Shalom.